Next, we have Michigan. Michigan's over-under is set at 7.5, which just sounds wrong for Michigan. They got a quarterback battle this offseason. Cade McNamara is the one coming back who has the most experience for them at least. They also have Alan Bowman, who started at Texas Tech for a while, who transferred to Michigan. And then there's the five-star freshman, J.J. McCarthy. I've heard fairly good things about McNamara, especially coming out of the limited things you can hear from Michigan. It does feel like Harbaugh likes to keep things, under the vest as much as possible. The running backs are good. Hassan Haskins comes back, and they're also bringing a highly touted freshman, Donovan Edwards, who they beat out some big-time schools, including Notre Dame, for. They have some talent at receiver, Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson, A.J. Henning. Very solid talent level there, I would say, on offense. I'm not totally convinced that they're actually going to have a good offense, and this feels like a really big year for Jim Harbaugh.
Isn't every year for Jim Harbaugh a big year? But yes, no, I 100% agree. He can't go under. He can't win 7 games and keep his job. I don't believe. For me, it feels like it's an over or bust scenario. And so this one's tough because I think if Michigan was they're in the wrong division. If they were in the other division,
yeah,
I could see them going and winning the whole division and going and playing for a Big Ten championship. Now, they're in the meat grinder, on the other side with Ohio State and Penn State. They play a lot of good football teams over there. But no, I like them. Like I like Jim Harbaugh. I think they'll hit over. I think they can get to 8 wins. Yeah, no confidence in this at all. Just the way they handle quarterbacks. For Jim Harbaugh to be a former quarterback, struggles handling quarterbacks. Like yes. It feels disjointed. I think every time it almost feels maybe like what Steve Spurrier did back in his days at South Carolina. It feels disjointed. There's no trust, I don't think, between the quarterback and the coaches, and they feel every mistake, like I'm going to get pulled. And that's kind of how they play maybe sometimes too. But they have talent. That's one thing he has done from day one, has brought talent there. He's recruited at a decent level. Again, he's not at Ohio State, probably not even at Penn State level, but he's still a good recruiter. They still have 5 stars there. They have NFL players that they consistently pump out. So there is talent there. Yeah, I'm not sure. This one's tough for me. It's very tricky. I'll go over, but hesitantly.
Yeah, I'm actually on the under on this one. And I don't love it, but man, I just don't feel great about this team. I really don't. We listed some talent there on offense. There's also talent on defense. You have Aiden Hutchinson, who's one of the top defensive ends in the country. Chris Hinton's a pretty big name as well on the defensive line. Most of their back 7 returns. So realistically, I probably should feel better about this team on paper. They did finally get rid of Don Brown, a defensive coordinator. They hired Mike McDonald from the Ravens. Little Harbaugh connection there. So yeah, there's definitely hope there. There's potential, but it needs to happen. Like they need to figure it out now. And if you look through their schedule, so they open against Western Michigan, but then they have Washington. And if this is a truly good team, I feel like they probably should beat Washington. I'm not picking it. I think Washington has a good chance to win this game. Then they have NIU and Rutgers, but then they have at Wisconsin. And Wisconsin has owned them recently. Just owned them. I don't feel good about that at all. Then they play at Nebraska. They better not lose at Nebraska. Then Northwestern. Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Northwestern is a pretty tough draw from the other side. Northwestern will probably be a bit worse than they were last year. Still not an easy game, not a gimme. Then you have Michigan State, who they lost to last year. They just cannot struggle with Michigan State the way they constantly have this entire decade, really. Michigan State is not as talented as Michigan. They should not beat them as often as they do, and it happens over and over. What is that about?
Yeah, they again, I think it's part of the thing. They have the talent to beat some of these top teams. They do. The talent is there. And then they often are losing to teams they shouldn't. Now, there's some must-win games here on this list for Harbaugh. He has to beat Northwestern. I think he has to beat Indiana, and he has to beat Michigan State.
Yes.
Nebraska, you can throw Nebraska in there too. These are must-win games. Like he will get fired on the plane ride home if he loses these games. These are games that they should win. They're more talented than these teams. They're better. They're going to have way more just from a physical perspective when they line up. They're going to be able to blow these teams off the ball. They're going to be very, very good. And yeah, these are must-win games for them. Michigan is so hard, man. Like it's so difficult. Who knows what's going to happen there? It's so on paper they should be really good. They should. They have they had you mentioned they got rid of Don Brown, but they had really good coaching on with between Harbaugh and Don Brown. Don Brown very respected in all coaching circles. Like he is a really good play caller. Now, agreed, it got stale, it got stagnant there at the end. But most people that have had to coach against Don Brown would come and argue and say that he was a very, very good defensive play caller. Now, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for Harbaugh and for the program in general? Like, why is a very, very well thought of, talented play caller not succeeding there? Is it a Michigan problem? Like, can you say that? Like, this has been several coaches now. It's hard to know. It's hard to know from an outside perspective.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. You talk all the time about the players know first, the recruits know first. Well, right now they're class of 22 recruiting. They have 15 commits, 11 of which are 3-stars. They have 1 5-star, but he's a Michigan kid. Like he's supposed to go to Michigan, right? And man, like if you're them, you got to be worried. Like you cannot have too many classes like that, or you are immediately down to where you're fighting for 4th or 5th place just in the East. This has to be just a blip on the radar, and it probably will be if they can hit 8 or 9 wins this year. But again, even if they go 8-4, do you feel good about that as a Michigan fan?
You don't. You're not expecting to win 8 games at Michigan. You're one of the top winning programs of all time, and I think that's where the frustration comes in, because there's a level of frustration between Harbaugh and the fan base. It's the fans they're patient. I will give them that. They're more patient than they would say it, if they were in the SEC. They've waited it out a little bit, but he has been absolutely throttled by Ohio State. He needs to at least make that game close. He has to. He needs to make that game close. There was multiple games where Michigan was they weren't favored, but it was like a 7-point spread, 7 or less. It was supposed to be a close game. Both teams were highly ranked coming into that last game of the year, and they just completely run off the field. The game's over at halftime. Like, so that has to change. The fans are going to want to see some level of competition in the game against Ohio State. That's where he's really measured at. It's a game he doesn't have to win this year, but he does need to keep it close.
See, I'm not exactly sure. Like I feel like that is gone for now. If I'm a Michigan fan, what I want is for Michigan to start beating all the teams they're supposed to beat. Work on that now. Start beating all the teams you're supposed to beat. From there you can up the recruiting a bit, and then maybe you can worry about Ohio State. They don't have a shot at competing with Ohio State, not a chance. And there's been some talk from some of the current players about how things are different this year. Maybe they are. I'm not buying it. I'm still on the under.
Wow, the under. So, if he goes under, will he keep his job?
No, absolutely not.
He's gone.
I think so. Yep. And again, this is not something I'm super comfortable with. He could absolutely rub this in my face. But there's only about 4 games I really feel great about on their schedule. They could go 4-8 if everything implodes. I don't think they will, but I think 7-5 is slightly more likely than 8-4. So
wow, that's a bold call. The one thing I want to say too, I like Harbaugh. Like I really do. I think he's a really good coach. He coached the Niners to the Super Bowl. Like they did lose, but he had the 49ers in the Super Bowl. And for that to be, for someone that coaches that well at that level to go down to college, it feels like everything's there. It feels like they have all the components. All the components are there for them to win 9 or 10 games and play in a big bowl game, either the Citrus Bowl, maybe even, God forbid, a New Year's Day bowl. Like they could potentially go to the Rose Bowl. If they have, I think all the components are there for it to happen, but it's not gonna. Like there's no
Right.
chance it's gonna. Like it's so discombobulated there that everything's so mixed up and nothing feels known. There are no known quantities at Michigan. You just know that it's going to be very unpredictable. And yeah, it's, I think it just have to pull your hair out if you're a Michigan fan. Like it's got to be extremely frustrating just to sit there and watch. But I do like him. Like I'm not sure why. He's going to be the one that I may go down with. I'm going to go. I'm taking him on the over. I think they'll find a way to win 8 games. They have a bunch of games that are kind of coin flip games almost, where the spread will be very, very close. And I think they'll win more than they lose, and they'll come out and win eight games. I think they'll lose to Washington. I don't actually think they'll win week 2. I think Washington's pretty good. I like what Jimmy does there. So yes, he'll keep his job. I have him keeping his job, just for the record.
Well, as a Notre Dame fan, I'm hoping you're right. And